Join the conversation by commenting live on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch. This is the Fifth Chapter with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.
That's right. Welcome to the Fifth Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian, and we are raring and ready to go for 5 fantastic chapters in episode number 38.
Yeah, it's Joe Milton season. SZN, Joe Milton season, man. Let's go.
That's right. We're certainly going to be getting to that with regards to Michigan football, because in the last 48 hours, it has not just been about the return of Big Ten football. It's about who is returning to the field and who isn't returning to the field for multiple teams throughout the conference. I want to thank everybody out there who is watching today's show on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on Twitch. And we also want to thank those who are listening to the podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. For those of you who want to listen to it, it will be available just before 11 p.m. Eastern on the day of each show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and to participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook, via Twitch, and via YouTube. Dennis will be reading your comments throughout the show.
And to that point, remind our executive producer that Facebook isn't launched yet, so we want to get that guy and get all the guys and girls in there as we move along.
We will definitely get on that. Let's take a look in the meantime at today's book. As you can see in the second chapter, the undermanned same old Lions have a chance to win in Green Bay this Sunday, or do they? With all the players that they're missing, we'll take a look at their odds in that game. Also, in the third chapter, the choking LA Clippers lose Game 5, 6, and 7, and now Denver moves on. What's next for the Clippers, and can the Nuggets take down LeBron James? Then in the fourth chapter, why the heck is Niko Goodrum, with his 192 batting average, whining as he returns from the injured list? And then in the fifth chapter, of course, it is the major wager. Dennis and I have some bets for you guys. Perhaps it'll be about the U.S. Open. Perhaps it'll be about football games going on this weekend. You got NHL and NBA playoff games. A lot to get to. So definitely want to encourage you guys to weigh in on all of that, and we'll get our Facebook streaming going in just a moment. But Dennis, we'll start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to college football. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time now, especially with these other conferences getting set to go in terms of the Pac-12 or the ACC and the Big 12 already underway. And, of course, you had a lot of criticism for Kevin Warren when he rolled out his decision to not go right away with the Big Ten starting up their season. But we did find out finally 2 days ago that the Big Ten's football season is going to start officially on October 24th. The decision was unanimous. There's no schedule yet, but we do know that each team is going to be playing 9 games. There's going to be 8 games during the regular season, and then there's going to be a 9th game added based on seeding, 1 from each division, including the number 1 seeds in each division for the championship game. And, for the other 12 teams, it'll be like a bowl game, because it doesn't look like there's going to be a bowl season this year. All game 9s are going to take place on December 19th, which gives the Big Ten a chance to be in the CFP, because the CFP is decided on the 20th. The schedule looks like it'll come out maybe tomorrow or in the next couple of days. No fans at any games with the possible exception of family members. Beginning on September 30th, there will be daily rapid testing. Anyone who tests positive would get a different test, a PCR test, to confirm. And if that confirms a positive test, they must not compete for 21 days. And they must undergo comprehensive cardiac testing and be cleared by cardiologists before returning. Teams must also pause for 7 days if a team's positivity rate is at least 5% or the population's is at least 7.5%. And they must, quote, proceed with caution and enhance COVID-19 prevention if the positivity rate is between 2 and 5% and if the population's rate is above 3.5%. Dennis, it seems pretty comprehensive. Are you going to keep on ripping Kevin Warren and the Big Ten now that there's a plan out, or do you like the plan?
I like the plan. I don't think there's anything to rip Kevin Warren out now. He didn't do a very good job when he hatched the Jenga 41 schedule, and then a few days later, letting all the coaches and players twist in the wind. He came out and didn't say a whole lot about what they were doing. 8 days later, put out the letter to the Big Ten community, which didn't explain much either, and it was kind of. You're sitting back it was a justifiable position, but they acted like they were guilty of something. They were running for cover and wouldn't explain themselves. And then they were slipping some of this myocarditis, some of these studies to like Nicole Auerbach out at the Athletic. And almost immediately the myocarditis studies were being debunked. Like, I don't know anything about myocarditis, but the doctors were at opposite sides of this across the country. And even was just, I don't know, even if it was a week ago, 2 weeks ago, there was some Penn State doctor put some really inflated claims out there. And for, about 8 hours, people are like, oh my God, they're going to have to shut everything down. So to get to this point, they said that they made it pretty clear that they were just postponing, not canceling, although nobody thought that they were going to play in the fall. But you got some things that have come into place almost immediately when they did hit the pause or cancel, whatever you want to say, postponement, and that is the daily rapid testing, and that was a game changer. They said it was a game changer when it happened, and it proved to be a game changer. That's the biggest thing. And then, getting the doctors that were worried about the heart inflammation, making them feel like that they could test it out and they could screen it and whatever else. But pretty comprehensive test, 9 games in 9 weeks with no breaks in there, 21 days. It seems likely that teams are going to have to cancel games. I don't know if they forfeit them or if they just end up playing 6, 7. I would doubt that all teams play 9, but I hope so. Just like I hope the ACC plays whatever they got 11 and the SEC plays 10.
Well, that's already not happening because you got Virginia Tech canceled this weekend. You got North Carolina versus UNC Charlotte canceled this weekend.
Yeah, well, they postponed and they got a lot of days on at the end so they can move things around. So maybe they do have a little bit more flexibility in the ACC because they're already underway.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that UNC Charlotte and North Carolina have already decided they're not going to be able to reschedule that game. They could schedule a different game, but because they don't have a mutual off day, they won't be able to schedule that. But look, I like the plan too. It's safety first. SEC and ACC are just playing, and I think that's one thing you have to consider. They're just playing. They probably got a doctor saying, "Hey, you guys feeling sick today?" And if they say yes, they say, "Well, you're not going to die, so just get in there and start practicing." And I know the Big 12 has decided that they are going to have rapid testing, but in terms of the SEC and ACC, it just seems like they're just going out there and playing, while the Big 10 is saying they want safety and they've got some meat on their bones, testing every single day. Everyone, basically every single day that there's a game or a practice, they have a bubble, a temporary bubble, because they know that everybody that's inside of the practice facility or everybody inside of the stadium for the game does not have the Rona unless there is a false negative. And I like the fact that they have the prevention against a false positive, as we saw what happened with Matthew Stafford. If you are positive for that first test, they give you a different test to see if you're really positive. And additionally, in terms of safety first, it's not just you're out for 4 days or 7 days or 14 days. They're saying, hey, We want you out for 3 weeks, no practice, no games, no participation whatsoever. And on top of that, if you remember on Tuesday, obviously I'm not a scientist or anything like that, but I said, look, if they're really serious about myocarditis, then perhaps if somebody tests positive, they need to be tested for myocarditis. They need to have heart MRIs. And guess what? As part of the plan, they said that during that 21-day period, doctors are going to be giving them heart MRIs and testing them to make sure that they don't have myocarditis or something else like that. So this is, I think this is a great plan. I think obviously you were criticizing him heavily. A lot of people out there were criticizing Kevin Warren heavily. I didn't criticize him because I figured, look, it's pretty obvious why the season is getting postponed, but I wanted to see what the reasoning was for bringing it back, and the reasoning seems legit. They were concerned about health issues. The health issues, it seems, have been satisfied with this comprehensive plan. So as long as things continue on this path, then we should be able to have college football by a week before Halloween. The only issue, and this is not something that is really under the Big Ten's control, is that when you start in late October, if the talk about a second wave is true, and we start seeing numbers start to tick up in terms of caseload, in terms of deaths between now and 5 or 6 weeks from now, then we could see the Big Ten only play a couple of weeks of football before canceling or no football. But if there's a second wave, then nobody's going to be playing football at all anyway.
Yeah, well, that's right. And what they have here is a chance, and that's all really anybody wanted. I don't think anybody's sitting around guaranteeing that there's going to be 9 games, that there's going to be a college football championship, that there's going to be anything. There's just you're trying to deal with it, move forward, adjust, see what you can do, and they've done that. I thought Kevin Warren came off really well the other day, I guess yesterday, when he did his news conference. He wasn't over there, acting like they were the smartest people in the room or anything else. He took the criticism. He chalked it up to passion from, fans, parents, and students. And he did a good job. And he did not do a good job, the other times. So get up there, face the music. He did that. And, now they're going to see if they can play football, which is exciting. 37 days away from today.
Yeah, they'll definitely have that opportunity to do so, and certainly the next big step is the schedule. What's the schedule going to look like? They're going to have 8 regular season games and then a bonus 9th game, the conference championship, and then the 6 quote-unquote bowl, or the 6 quote-unquote bowl games. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they decide to put out the crossover games, because I think it makes sense to do a competitive balance and have the top teams from last year in the East face the top teams in the West year. But I don't think it's going to be that easy to do that, because while certainly I would love to see Wisconsin versus Penn State as opposed to Wisconsin versus Maryland, and Ohio State versus, let's say, Minnesota as opposed to Ohio State versus Illinois, you got to think about how if the Big Ten does it a different way, where the power teams get to play cupcakes, it's there's, number one, less of a chance of a rematch in the Big Ten championship game. But also, if you're trying to get teams into the college football playoff, you don't want teams beating each other up. If you look at, for instance, Penn State, if they have crossover games against Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then they split those 2 games and then lose to Ohio State, they're 7-2, and they're not going to the CFP. But if their crossovers are Illinois and Purdue, and they lose to Ohio State, they're 8-1. They could sneak in as a 4 seed. If you're trying to do what's best for the conference in terms of getting a team the best chance or 2 to get into the CFP, then perhaps you look at giving the heavyweights some cupcakes on their crossovers.
Yeah, and I think that's real talk. You could just go to, like you said, based on the schedule or the strength of schedule from last year. You could do it by proximity. You could go back to the original schedule, and, you had 3 crossover games in there, and, you just pull one out of a hat and eliminate it. There's a lot of ways, but just like when the NCAA tournament sits around there and they draw things up and you look into the second round, you're like, oh, Rick Pitino is going to be taking on Jim Boeheim. And they're always like, oh, that's purely coincidental. Really? Steve Fisher in the second round from San Diego State taking on Michigan was purely coincidental? No, they do it because people like matchups, People like juicy sides there, side stories. And in this case, what you're talking about is that getting Ohio State, Penn State, those would be the two most likely teams that could get into the college football playoff.
Maybe
All
Wisconsin.
The teams, maybe Michigan. All the teams get to split the revenue equally, so it benefits Rutgers as much as it benefits Ohio State. If Ohio State ultimately gets into the college football playoff, so if you are sitting there when they say they're going to get some special treatment, yeah, they probably are going to get special treatment, because the whole idea is let's get a team into the college football playoff. And you might say let's do it this way or that way, but there's no doubt that they're looking at it now. I think having a ranked team in there, if you're undefeated, you're probably going. So that could be, if that's your argument, like, look, Ohio State's already going to have to play Penn State. They're already going to play Michigan. So there's enough quality opponents there. Let's just give them two easy ones. If they're undefeated, they get in. I see that case. But, the case where if, you have multiple undefeated teams in a short season and you say, hey, let's give them Wisconsin and Northwestern one cupcake, one what could be a top 10, top 15 type team, that could give them a boost, and you put that as the last game, could give them a boost, to the selection committee.
Yeah, it could, and of course there's also the Big Ten championship game. So, I mean, if you're going to, I think perhaps another argument for having a week crossover schedule is one of your crossovers is going to be the best team from the opposite division anyway. If Wisconsin ends up playing Rutgers in Maryland, well, they're going to have to face most likely Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So they run the table in the West, and then they beat the Deep South Buckeyes straight up, no fans, neutral site. Then, nobody's going to argue that they shouldn't be in. I think that really the biggest argument is if there's a one-loss team, do you want to get them in? And what's the best way to possibly get two teams into the CFP? Because you're certainly not going to get two teams into the CFP if the top teams are beating each other up.
I'm buying what you're selling. I think the Buckeyes get two cupcakes in their crossover games. I'm a believer here. Let's get to some of the feedback. We have a lot rolling in. It's good to see Paul on here. Paul W. Sometimes he's on Twitch. Sometimes he's on Facebook. Sometimes he's on YouTube. He shows up on all three platforms. So it's just good to see him on there. Now, Keith, he's always on YouTube. And I got to say, I had rarely put on my reading glasses, but then I was making notes, and I had to make the notes so large because I didn't have the glasses on. And I like to just write it out so I can be able to see, and then I can't really see that's a long story, but I'm wearing the reading glasses to read the feedback. Greg says Kevin Warren, he calls him Warner. Warren is a bad president. He doesn't give a great communication. Do you guys think that the Pac-12 will now play? Do you think the Pac-12 will now play, Chap?
I think they will. I think they'll probably start around the same time as the Big Ten. They've talked about potentially starting in late October. They were the ones that were first on board with getting the rapid testing. There hasn't been really any talk about that letter that the Pac-12 players wrote about. We're not going to play unless all these demands are met. And it doesn't seem like all those demands are met. It seems like the Pac-12 is meeting demands about safety, and perhaps they'll meet some about social justice, but in terms of cutting these guys checks, it doesn't seem like they're doing that at all. So it looks like perhaps the Pac-12 players put out an empty statement. But yeah, I think that they'll probably be on the same timeline as the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think there's three things working against them. One of them is that those wildfires out there, if you see the pictures of California, it's like so the air quality is really, they had to stop swimming at certain places. So I don't know how that's going to play in, but that's definitely a concern there. The other one is Oregon and California. They're shut down where you can't practice, so maybe they would get a special exemption.
I heard the Pac-12 president say, I think it was yesterday, that they have gotten assurances from the governors of those two states that they can practice. The only issue would be from, I think it's county officials about whether or not they can do that. And, just ask President Trump for a nasty tweet, and all of a sudden you get what you want, right?
Well, I don't know how much he's going to mingle in states that he's not going to lose out west, so I think he'll still steer clear of California and Oregon. But The third one is that, and might be the biggest one after discussing the first two, is that there were a couple different. I could wish I could tell you who said it or whatever, but the point is they said it is that most of the schools here have not been practicing. They haven't been doing anything, and so they are not sitting around like Michigan saying we're going to be ready to go in 2 weeks or we'll be ready to go in 4 weeks. They were talking about we need 8 weeks. So I don't know. I don't know if they have that urgency, if they can get that done, if they can, join the party or not. But they're going to try, just like the Mid-American Conference is going to try, just like the Mountain West is going to try. Everybody's going to try now that they have rapid testing.
Yeah.
All right, and the other part with Kevin Warren, sorry, Chep, to interrupt. We talked about him. Kevin Warren, he botched things in the early going, but to his credit, he got back and what everybody was asking for him, stand up, answer all the questions, and tell everybody what you're thinking, where you're at. And then, you guys aren't doing anything illegal. Remember, you're always coming from a spot where you were trying to do things from a safety perspective. Stop running and act like you guys were guilty of murder over there and not wanting to talk to anybody. They faced the music. They weren't condescending. And it's a complete reversal. And you know what? We've seen this over the years. Gary Bettman was a devil with a forked tongue back in, 2005 when they canceled the Stanley Cup and Stanley Cup playoffs. And, Manfred was a big jerk until he got – Chapman still doesn't like him. But
no reason to.
The criticism went away when he was able to put together a baseball season. And we know Roger Goodell. I mean, if the NFL was striking, everybody would hate him. But they're playing football, so people tolerate him. Same thing with Kevin Warren. Kevin Warren just takes the bullets for all the presidents and chancellors. Now that they're playing football, I think people like him.
Look, and once again, I have not had an issue with the way Kevin Warren has handled this at all. If you can't understand that they were postponing it because of safety reasons, I don't know what to say to you. So I don't know that he needed some huge, state of the Big Ten address and all that. I mean, it was clear everything is shut down, or lots of things in this country are shut down because of the virus, because of safety issues. But of course, one thing you also have to wonder is how much did President Trump weigh into this? He put out a tweet, as you can see right there, a couple days ago, or yesterday. Great news, Big Ten football is back. All teams to participate. Thank you to the players, coaches, parents, and all school representatives. Have a fantastic season. And here's the key. It is my great honor to have helped. Now, you wonder how much he did help. I saw Barry Alvarez said that he had a conversation. That Kevin Warren had a conversation with President Trump. But I highly doubt that these university presidents and athletic directors and chancellors were saying, well, I don't know if we should play. What if we get another nasty tweet? President Trump was just in Michigan saying he wants them to play college football. We have to play. I don't think that played any part of it at all.
Well, it was a win-win for Trump. If they ended up getting it going, he could take credit for it like he did. If they didn't, he could say he tried. So It was pretty easy for him. Kevin Warren did say it was respectful. It was a respectful conversation. But, there were a lot of people like, the governor slow playing this, to try to win some votes. Same thing with the presidents, like at Michigan, mostly Democrats and regents. So there's no way that they'll play before November. So I'm glad that's out the window. So they have to sit around talking about, a Republican, Democrat. They were doing it and closing things down that way because they're playing football. Keith, who is the number one Fifth Chapter contributor when it comes to feedback, is here and ready. He's like, what's up, fellas? I'm happy for the players because I know they really wanted to play, but I'm just not excited to watch any of this. All right, Chapman, there's a little sentiment there. You can also maybe look at some of the ratings there. And, Keith is a big sports fan, but he's not excited to watch any of this. What do you think?
Well, I'm not as excited as I usually am. I can share I can share that with Keith. I can say that. I mean, when you think about college football, one of the things that you think about is the impact of the crowd. I mean, when you think about 110,000, 111,000 at Michigan Stadium, 107,000 in a whiteout atmosphere at Beaver Stadium, 100+ thousand at at the Horseshoe, or even if it's just 60, 70,000 at Spartan Stadium, and you think about the impact of the crowd, how loud they are. The 19-year-olds who aren't wearing short shirts and are painting their chests and stuff, and instead you're going to have a library-like atmosphere. I mean, I don't think that there's any sport that's going to be more affected by lack of a home field advantage than college football. We're not talking about seasoned professionals. We're talking about 18 to 23-year-olds who can get rattled by the crowd noise, by playing on the road, things like that. Think about Michigan football. They seem to be really good when they're at home, even against good teams, with the exception of Ohio State. They play those same teams on the road, and they lose by 3 touchdowns. That's not going to be the same this year. So, am I as excited about college football as I have been in the past? No, I'm still going to watch, but it's going to be different.
Yeah, I look at it like this, that I would love to have the perfect Thanksgiving where I flew in Alaskan king crab and had my own shrimp cocktail. We got with some hors d'oeuvres going at 11 o'clock, watched the Lions at 12, and then had a Thanksgiving turkey with mashed potatoes, pumpkin pie, sweet potato pie, everything that I like there. All my family, we all stay around and watch 3 football games on a 70-inch TV. That's not happening. I have a 55-inch TV. I'm not flying any crab legs in. The whole family's not coming over. And I'm only going to have, some turkey and mashed potatoes and maybe some
Big Macs.
Gravy out of, not homemade. But I'm still going to like it because it's a holiday, and it's the same thing with football. No, it's not perfect, but this is way better than having no football. And, I've watched the games. It's hard, like, the doubleheader on Monday night, but the second time, it was Tennessee and Denver. And no, it doesn't really amp you up. So you have to adjust. And if you can't get together with somebody else to, crank it up a little bit, if you can't throw, I would say, bet the opposite of what Chapman suggests to do. But, you're able to put $1 or $2 on a game, that can create some excitement. So you have to look, to artificially, create some excitement, because it's not there with the fans. It is a little bit different. So I get that point. But
and so many, because we're talking about hundreds of thousands of fans going to multiple stadiums, we're talking about millions of fans out there across the country that would be going to games. Myself, I would, if there wasn't a pandemic, I'd be going to 2 Penn State games this year. The game at Michigan Stadium and another game at Beaver Stadium. That is missing from my college football experience this year. So that's another reason to not quite be as excited. I'm going to watch. When Penn State wins, I'll be happy. When they lose, I'll be crushed. But I understand where Keith is coming from 100%.
I do too. Craig, what if a Big Ten team goes 8-0 and another small college goes? Ain't that how you determine the championship for 8 games? And then the Big Ten's playing 9 games. So, look, they're going to have a beauty contest this year, whatever the data
They do
points.
every year.
Well, and they do. And if you're an undefeated team, that's a big data point that they're looking to, being undefeated. It's usually, they're talking about just tiebreakers there. But blowing out teams, being able to beat ranked teams, having a strong resume that you're able to present. But, what happens if Clemson only plays 6 games, Alabama only plays 7, and Ohio State plays 8, but looks like it has a relatively soft schedule?
Oh, no, down goes Fithian! Down goes Fithian! Oh, he's back.
Yeah, so, right, you just make the best of it. Just like Chapman yelling every time I, drop my camera.
I'm concerned. Well, this year, there's going to be zero chance of any non-Power 5 team making the CFP, because one of the requirements of being one of those non-Power 5 teams to get into the CFP is in your non-conference schedule, knocking off a team like an Oregon or knocking off a team like an Iowa or something to show that you could be up there with the big dogs. But this year, let's say Boise State, we're familiar with them from 10, 12 years ago. They're not going to have a chance to beat an Alabama or an Auburn or a Florida or an Oregon, because guess what? They're going to be playing a whole bunch of Big Sky teams or whatever. You go 8-0 in the Big Sky, even if you win all 8 games by 30 points, you're going to be ranked like 14th.
Yeah, you're right about that. Paul's looking forward to the college hockey season as well. I am too, Paul, and he's talking about the OHL. He's now looking for Big Ten and hoping for the WCHA as well. I'm ready for those. I know basketball has jumped in, so I think college hockey, and you're going to look for that coming up soon here as well. There's already people jumping in talking about the Lions, so let's get to them.
Yeah, let's turn the page to the second chapter.
And that is Detroit Lions. We know that you probably know by now, I should say, that they lost to the Bears in week 1. Now they've got the Green Bay Packers as they have to go to Lambeau Field. But that injury report, again, man, look at that Kenny G. No practice today. Chapman, can you put that practice report up there? I'm sorry, injury report?
Yep, it's up there. Yeah, Kenny Galladay, no practice Wednesday and Thursday. Desmond Trufant, no practice Wednesday or Thursday.
Practice.
I'm going to try and do this right. Halapula Vaitai, no practice Thursday and Friday. If you want to throw Hunter Bryant in there as well, that's the same thing. And then, of course, you can look at other guys limited. Joe Dahl with a groin injury. Jeff Okuda, that's the one positive, full practice. But then defensive tackle Nick Williams, limited both days with a shoulder injury. They're depleted.
Yeah, and Coleman's on the IR. That's the other thing. So you're going in without your two starting corners. Okuda's going to be thrown in the fire. He's going to have to check Devontae Adams. We're going to find out right out of the gate here what the young rookie out of Ohio State is all about. I expect Devontae Adams to eat here coming up on Sunday. I don't know what kind of plan the Lions, they screwed up. That was one of the big things they messed up with the Bears once Trufant went out. They had some zone, and then they just were like, no, we're just going to go to man. And obviously it was the wrong decision because they got tore up. But this is tough, man. Tough not having Trufant, tough not having Coleman in there. And Kenny Galladay, that thing popped up just a couple days before the start of the regular season, man. All kinds of soft tissue injuries, hamstrings. A lot of those popping up. So, yeah, this is a tough one. I felt like that number was going to be closer to 10. It's 6 here. How are you looking at this game against the Pack?
Yeah, I saw 6.5, but either way, I mean, I expect an easy Green Bay Packers victory. I think that they'll probably win 38-20. I had the Lions getting off to an 0-4 start. Nothing that happened in week 1 made me less confident in that, and a lot made me more confident in that. When you look at blowing the lead in dagger time, they continue to choke. As you mentioned, Galladay didn't play. Doesn't look like he's going to play this week. Vaitai, no last week. No practice and playing last week. Same thing with this week. Justin Coleman, Desmond Trufant, Jeff Okuda, while he's going to play, he has not played. He has not played an NFL game. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm licking my chops. Number 1 defensive back, out probably. Number 2 defensive or cornerback, out. Number 3 cornerback, never played an NFL game. Number 4 cornerback, Amani Oruwariye, is a second-round pick. And then you got guys like Jeff McCray and all these dopey guys you never heard of before. And the first time you did hear of them, you saw them in the second half of the game against the Bears, and Mitch Trubisky went back to looking like he's going to be a Pro Bowler. Aaron Rodgers is going to devour them. I mean, he devoured the Minnesota Vikings, who have some new guys in the secondary but still have a decent pass rush, just got it in Ngakoue, to the tune of 43 points. Perhaps they'll take the foot off the pedal and only score 38 points. The Lions, if they want to win this game, they can't rely on their defense with their undermanned secondary and their dopey defensive-minded head coach, no matter how many pencils he sticks in their ear. The only chance they're going to have to win this game is to win a shootout. And they don't have the weapons for a shootout because Galladay is most likely not going to play. And there's not going to be any balance to their offense because the non-Adrian Peterson running backs did absolutely nothing. They were typical same old Lions post Barry Sanders running backs. And Adrian Peterson, while he was solid, once you get behind by a big chunk, you're not going to just keep on handing the rock off to him. You got to pass it, get yourself back in the game. The Lions are going to get absolutely destroyed in this game against Green Bay. If you can bet right now, or you can get down to the casino, or you want to play online or whatever, 6.5. I'd be comfortable playing an alternate spread at 10.5, 12.5, just to get yourself some extra juice there because the Packers are going to roll.
Yeah, well, usually when the Lions go to Lambeau, you just say you just chalk it up as an L, and then you just move on. There's not going to be any fans there, but having to fly there and still the mystique of the frozen tundra, I don't know, it would be cool there on Sunday, and then playing in that stadium. It's still one of those things that you have to deal with. Playing. You're used to playing indoors and on field turf, and you have to play outside. So there's still a little bit of advantage there. But, the only thing that I could say to try to think that the Lions would be able to stay in is they were competitive last year in the two games. They know that when you play the Packers that they're going to have a number of calls that are going to go against them. But so they should know that before going in. I think when you have Stafford, you have a shot, because he can get hot in a game, but not having the corners and not having Galladay, there's just no way I could pick the Lions. I mean, I would not pick them to win this game, and I have a hard time thinking they're going to stay within the number. It just seems like a double-digit win for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to me.
Yeah, and also no Vitae. We saw in the game on Sunday, the Lions, it seemed like whenever they were having success running the football, and really whenever they wanted to run the football, period, they ran to the left side. If Green Bay knows that they don't have to worry about Galladay and they don't have to worry about the Lions running it to the right side of the field, it should be very easy for the defense. The only reason I can think of to perhaps pick the Lions to cover and maybe get the shocking win is not just, well, look at what happened with the Patriots game a couple years ago, but Matt Patricia, while he's a bad coach, he's worse as the season gets along. At the beginning of the season, he's been able to be around 500. In 2018, there was a 3-7 collapse, but before then, he was 3-3. In 2019, there was the 0-9 collapse, but before that, he was 3-1. I still don't have any fear because I look back at what happened in last year's 3-1 start, and the 3 games that they won were against an Eagles team that was heavily depleted with injuries, more so than the Lions are going to be this week. And then they beat the Chargers and Giants, 2 teams that ended up picking in the top 6 of the draft. So, and the 3 losses they had were against playoff teams in the Chiefs, Packers, and Vikings.
Playoffs.
Yeah, that's exactly where the Packers are going this year. So they'll have no trouble. Despite Matt Patricia's early quote-unquote 500-esque success in seasons, the Packers will have no trouble crushing the Lions on Sunday.
Yeah, and the way Kyler Murray looked in Week 1 against San Francisco, and then knowing that the Saints are there in Week 4, it is pretty daunting. You wonder if, and there's a bye for the Lions in Week 5, if it's just going to be 4 and out for Matt Patricia. I mean, there's a real chance of that. Paul on Facebook has a wish list, and he says the next Lions coach and GM, Bill Cowher, is his choice.
Okay, we need to stop. I mean, every 2-3 years, whenever the Lions are looking at firing somebody, it's always Bill Cowher. I think that if you're looking for a new head coaching candidate, the guy that you should look at, and obviously the GM will have to pick that guy, should be Eric Bieniemy, because he's the offensive coordinator of the Chiefs. Obviously, they have a great head coach in Andy Reid. They have a great quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, and they have a bunch of weapons around. But Eric Bieniemy is engineering that offense right now. He engineered them to a Super Bowl. They were talking during the game on Thursday last week about how his players were so upset and angry that Bieniemy did not get a head coaching job because they thought that he was worthy of one. If you're looking for a head coach and you're looking for someone who could be there for several years to come, why not go with a top coaching candidate like him?
Yeah, he jumps out. I thought he should have been the coach last year for the Lions. He should be the coach right now for the Detroit Lions, and that didn't happen. And, Kansas City, with everything that they have going, another year under his belt, I mean, he will be at the top of a lot of teams' lists. So the only part that could be an issue now is that there'll be maybe another number of teams that are in for his services after the season. So
yeah, and I can't imagine that he's saying, I can't wait to go to the Lions and ruin my career.
Yeah, and as far as the next GM, you're not going to look to the Patriots. So, who has been the most successful organization that you look to? Well, you're going to go to the Chiefs. I think you'll look down at the Saints. You look at their tree. You might want to take a peek at the Rams. But I think going to San Francisco, what they've been doing with the draft, with Kyle Shanahan, has
bring Mayhew back?
Going out there with Lynch. Well, no, I don't think so. But I think somebody else in that San Francisco front office would be the direction that I would go and take a look at.
All right, Dennis, let's turn the page to the third chapter. And that takes us to the NBA, where we both had the Clippers winning on Tuesday to get it to the Western Conference Finals finally. And looks like they're going to have to wait another year to get there, because despite all the hype about an all-LA Western Conference Finals after the Clippers got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, the Lakers did their part, got rid of the Rockets in 5. The Clippers blew a double-digit lead in Game 5 and Game 6 and Game 7 and got annihilated in the second half of Game 7. That means starting tomorrow, it's Nuggets versus Lakers in the Western Conference Finals. We'll get to the Nuggets in just a second, but what about the team that had all the hype, the Clippers? Dennis, what's the impact of them choking this series away?
Well, they could break this thing up even before it got going. They gave up the most draft capital ever, to OKC to put this thing together, and it looked pretty good, especially just looking at Kawhi Leonard's recent track record. But, it's not like PG-13's taking a lot of heat, and he should, because the way that he played. But, man, Kawhi Leonard, where was he in that Game 7? So, and I love Doc Rivers, but you just look at it from Beverly. They got up. They were up 3-1, and they just took the foot off the gas, and thought that they could just go get some chicken wings, like Lou Williams, and that this thing was done. And they started looking already past them. It feels like, I'm surprised nobody did the Tracy McGrady. It feels good to be moving on to the next series and talking about being up 3-1. It's just when it goes bad like that. If you're Steve Ballmer, the owner there, you just think you run that back, or do you think about breaking that up, man? You explore every opportunity to break that thing up. One thing about Paul George is, like, Paul George is an all right player, but acting like he's some kind of superstar, and it was always like that, like Paul George, where's he going to go? Paul George is not a superstar.
Well, I'll say this: he did not play like a superstar in the Western Conference semis against the Denver Nuggets. And I think that any criticism levied against him or any criticism levied against Kawhi Leonard is fair. Kawhi Leonard obviously has a rock-solid resume, having been a two-time NBA champion and a two-time NBA champion MVP. But Kawhi Leonard didn't bring his A game to the bubble for this series, that's for certain. And then those complementary pieces of Marcus Morris and Reggie Jackson. Reggie Jackson did nothing, and Marcus Morris, all he did was get himself into controversy with flagrant fouls and fines and everything else. If I'm a Clippers fan, I'm upset, I'm angry. I'm thinking, we were supposed to be over the hill. We were supposed to be NBA title contenders, and we couldn't even beat the Nuggets. But I wouldn't panic. I wouldn't blow it up. I would see if perhaps you could turn the big two into a big three, because the big two plus complementary pieces did not work. I think you can also look at this as kind of a fluke. I mean, and attribute to the coronavirus, because of the different environment, the lack of fans. Certainly, a lot of folks said going into the bubble it's going to be Clippers versus Bucks. Neither team made it to even the conference finals, and I think that perhaps the environment played into that. They didn't have the crowd on their side for Game 5 or Game 7, which they would have in ordinary circumstances. I think the Bucks were certainly big victims of this bubble by losing to Miami in 5. You look at the Los Angeles Lakers, the lazy Lakers, as I like to call them. They haven't been great. They beat the Rockets in 5, but the Rockets didn't have Russell Westbrook for a couple of games, and they were playing this funky team without as a funky team without a center. They beat the Trailblazers in 5 in the first round, but the first couple games they were struggling, and then Damian Lillard didn't play the last game and a half. They haven't looked all that great. I think that the Nuggets and the Heat have been the biggest beneficiaries of this funky environment. But if I'm a Clippers fan, I'm probably going to look at excuses like that and say that's why we didn't get as far as we wanted to. We should have played better anyway, but if we have a more normal season next year, which is not a guarantee, we should fare better than losing in the second round and choking away 3 straight games.
Maybe. Remember, Kawhi Leonard can opt out, so they've got that hanging over their head. So whatever he wants, he's going to get. So if he wants Paul George there, he's going to be there.
Mm-hmm. One thing I think is also important to know, particularly if you're a fan of the Fifth chapter, is our friend G. Matt Cash. We interviewed him a couple of months ago, and he's been putting out on Twitter that he's got a new album coming out tomorrow called MacBook. So I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out. But back in July when he interviewed him, if you want to check out that interview, you can do so at any time. We talked to him about how he liked to rap about current events, about sports, and yesterday he released a new video about the Clippers choking away their 3-1 series lead to the Nuggets. Here's a little excerpt from that song that he put on his official Twitter account.
3-1 lead against Denver. Boy, it's about to be a long-ass winter. Them young boys came and put their ass in a blender. Man, I don't want to hear no more about Kawhi the best. They blew a 3-1 lead. Get that boy some rest. They had a good little lead, but you know the rest. That boy Jamal started shooting that bitch right out the net. I canceled my haircut, don't want to see no Clippers. I know that nigga Lou Will about to see them strippers. Man, them boys was out there playing like they was the Wizards. PG-13, he is not a killer. Hey, now let me get to the LeBron haters. You know them boys not fucking with no damn Lakers. They was out there playing soft like some annihilators. That boy Kawhi was really looking like some annihilator. The boys went up 3-1 and couldn't get a win. PG game 7 only had 10. Talking about he the GOAT. Nigga, how win? And if he was, how the fuck is they out?
They win yet another game 7.
And let's talk about the Clippers and how they blew a 3-1 lead against Denver. Boy, it's about to be a long ass winter. Them young boys came and put their ass in a 3-1.
So there you go, a little rap from our boy G Mac Cass. I thought the best part of that was when he said he canceled his haircut, doesn't even want to see any Clippers right now, but they deserve to be the butt of all these jokes after what they did against the Denver Nuggets.
That's what happens, man. When you're one of the favorites and you go down, you are going to get mocked. Keith on the feedback on YouTube says he keeps reading about deals for Blake Griffin. This one he's talking about Westbrook for Blake Griffin, that trade rumor. I saw a trade rumor for Bledsoe from the Bucks involving Blake Griffin, and Blake Griffin's got 2 years left and a gigantic amount of money here, but there are some guys out there that also make big-time money, and there is a chance here, and the Pistons have a new GM in Troy Weaver, so the possibility of Blake Griffin being dealt, I think they're I'm not going to say it's 50-50, but I'm going to give it a good 25% chance that there could be a blockbuster deal involving the Pistons with Blake Griffin heading somewhere. What do you think?
3% chance. Look, if I'm a title contender, and especially if I'm a team like the Bucks, I'm not going to say, hey, we've got this 1 or 2 year window with Giannis. Let's bring in a guy who last year couldn't make it a month, and has a gigantic contract on top of that.
Well, if you look at the Bucks, the trade, the Pistons would be getting in Eric Bledsoe and like Ilyasova, and not a whole hell of a lot, but what they would be getting is that salary off the books, and also they would be looking to tank at that particular moment.
I would do it from a Pistons standpoint. I mean, the Pistons need a point guard. They can get themselves Eric Bledsoe.
The Bucks need to change something around too. It's not like you think you're just going to run it back if you're the Bucks.
Well, and I understand that they might need to change things too, but getting rid of a critical guy like Eric Bledsoe and then bringing in a guy like Blake Griffin, who when he played last year was not the all-star that we saw 2 years ago and has had significant injury issues and last year missed the vast majority of the season, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that's going to make...
What about Westbrook?
Westbrook to the Bucks?
Westbrook to the Pistons, for Blake Griffin.
Look, I would take that deal. I don't know why the Rockets would want to bring in Blake Griffin. Like I said, the injuries. These deals sound good from a Pistons standpoint. I don't know that they sound good from a team that's going to be bringing Blake Griffin in.
Yeah, I don't have Westbrook's contract in front of me, but I know it's for more than 1 year. He's not in the final year of his deal. It's probably for more than 2. So the Pistons aren't taking Westbrook at more than 2 years for like $40 million.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to get out from under those gigantic contracts. They're looking to get young stars, and then when they're ready to compete, then they'll look to add something there. But could there be a deal where the Pistons bring in an aging veteran with a bloated contract because they're looking to make the race to the bottom much higher than 3%? So we'll see.
And in terms of the Nuggets versus the Lakers, I've got the Nuggets winning that series in 6 games. I just don't trust the Lakers right now, and I think that the Nuggets have a good shot to win this the first game of the series beginning tomorrow.
Yeah, well, I'll take that bet. I'll go with the Lakers here in 6, and it's not really anything against the Nuggets, man. I love how they played. Murray and Jokic, the Joker, has been absolutely awesome. You know, Gary Harris from Michigan State, Millsap. They've done a really good job, man. I've enjoyed watching them. Michael Porter looks like he could be a star in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got a lot of nice pieces here. But, you know, the Lakers just the playoff Rondo is good for a game here. And just the way LeBron has him. More workmanlike now. I know you called him lazy last series, but they've
the whole bubble.
They're starting to nail it down a little bit here. I expect them to take care of business.
All right, let's turn the page to the 4th chapter.
All right, well, that gets us to the Detroit Tigers and their sometime shortstop. He was supposed to be the shortstop this year, Niko Goodrum. Remember Ron Gardenhire's talking about, well, we want to see what good he can do out there at short and give him the time here to really see what kind of player he is because he's moved around so much. But the Tigers have decided this week that they're going to ship Niko Goodrum over to second base, and they're going to look at Willie Castro, right, at shortstop.
That's correct.
To see what he can do in the remaining 12 games. And Niko Goodrum didn't seem like he was all aboard with the switch. What did you make of it?
No, he didn't. As a matter of fact, when he spoke to the fake news media, I put the quote up there. When they asked him about moving from short to second, he said, he said Wednesday, taking a pause before giving his response, "It's not my team. It's their decision they want to make. I go play ball. That's the only thing I can do." And then later on, he's quoted as saying, "I did as good as I thought I could do at short." Free Press mentions that he had 1 error in 110 chances at shortstop. The issue with Niko Goodrum is not his defense. As you can see right down there, the dude's hitting 192 coming into today. I don't know. Maybe he's 3 for 3 so far in the game today against the Indians. They're going up against Shane Bieber. I highly doubt that's the case. But Niko Goodrum's problem is that he can't hit. You can't hit. You can't play. The dude, when I understand how sometimes athletes say, well, an injury shouldn't just remove me from my position as a starter, no matter what the sport is. But the injury was not the reason he was removed as a starter. The reason he got removed as a starter was because he can't hit. You're hitting a $192 and you're going to bitch and complain and whine about Willie Castro taking your spot. It doesn't matter if he was if he went on the DL or not. Willie Castro, with the way he's been hitting, was going to replace Niko Goodrum. If he was hitting 292, well, then they'd try to fit Willie Castro in at second or third or somewhere else. If he was hitting 242, there's a chance he could hang on to it. But a $192, 645 OPS, and check this out. You want to talk about guys striking out a lot? He's got a 45% strikeout rate. He has a 54 strikeouts and 120 at-bats. Now, I'm not saying that Willie Castro doesn't strike out because he strikes out 29% of the time, but that's not 45% of the time, and Willie Castro has a 347 batting average. When you're leading the team in batting average, guess what? You're going to move guys that are way below the Mendoza line out. Niko Goodrum, he's on the verge of not even being a super sub anymore because guess what? When Jonathan Scope comes back, he's going to get that second base job, and Niko Goodrum is going to be fighting with the likes of Alcantara and Paredes and whoever else, perhaps even Spencer Torkelson next year, to be the third baseman. But as of right now, it's Willie Castro's job to lose. Niko Goodrum, you can whine all you want, but if you're whining to a $192 batting average, nobody cares.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Being below the Mendoza line, man, I would just say, I need to work on my hitting, and I was going to do anything to just club ass. So the old, no, I'm not going to do anything, not the way to go there.
No, you're right about that. And, in terms of the other issue regarding the Tigers, it's Ron Gardenhire, and there was some talk about whether or not he should get an extension because he's got less than 2 weeks left on his current deal. Look, for me, it doesn't really matter whether he comes back or not. He's not a great analytics guy, although the Tigers have been one of the league leaders in shifts in the 2020 season. But he's got a bad playoff record. They're not playing competitive baseball right now. So if they want to bring in a guy that they think could be the bridge for the next couple of years when they become a contender, if it happens, which I doubt because Al Avila's a GM, that's fine. If they want to bring him back for a year or two, that's fine because they're not going to compete next year anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it. They had some nice outings here with Skubal and Mize, but, this season is over for them as they limp to the finish line here. They are going to go over. They're 21.5. That's all I cared about. No, there were some positive signs for them. They didn't just completely fall flat on their face, but yeah, Gardenhire coming back. There just doesn't seem a path to them going out, spending big money and competing. So, next year, if you can get excited about a team that you're trying to say, hey, get some younger players back up here and see if we can go 500, that looks like the outlook right now here for the team. And, it's better than losing 114 games and back-to-back 99 loss seasons. It's going to be better than this particular season, but, that's what the prospects are for next year, 500. So if that does it for you, then, hey, I'm going to be there with you. We're going to still watch 500 baseball.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Well, and that's the best case scenario. You want to get to some feedback?
A lot of people just typing in, and this is what it comes down to for the Lions, SOL.
Yeah, that's all you really need to say. And it looks like Dennis got muted. If you want to turn your mic back on. I think Dennis got muted. Dennis, you got muted. Can you turn your mic back on? Dennis? I don't think Dennis can hear me, but Dennis's microphone got muted. So while he deals with with that technical issue, actually, as a matter of fact, let me see if we can reconnect with Dennis in just a second. Since we can't hear Dennis at the moment, we'll do this, and we'll say hi to Dennis in probably about the next 5 seconds. But in the meantime, we do want to get to... Are we reconnecting with Dennis now? Dennis?
Well, there he is. Can you hear me?
Go.
All right, let's wrap this thing up as I give you my major wager. I was on the Bills last week against the Jets. That was a guarantee, and now I'm back with the Bills again, go down to the Dolphins. I'll put another 50 on them. I've been rolling plus 300, so I'm back. Bills in back-to-back weeks.
What's the spread in that one?
5.5.
5.5. Okay, yeah, I don't trust the Dolphins either. I was looking at a few games today. Obviously, I need to bounce back after my major wager on Tuesday, picking the Lightning to cover 1.5, and they went to overtime.
I felt bad for you in that one. I felt bad for you.
Yeah, well, they didn't even. Not only did they not win by 2, they didn't even win the game. But I was looking at a few games. My major wager is going to be on the Heat. I've got them at plus 130. I don't know what the score is right now, but I've got them winning the game straight up at plus 130. And I was wondering why are they even underdogs. They're 9-1 in the playoffs. 9-1.
Playoffs.
And they're playing against a team in the Boston Celtics who's 500 over their last 8 because they won their last series 4-3, and then they lost game 1. So, yeah, I'm picking the Boston Celtics. I'm picking the Heat at plus 130. There's great value there. What the heck has happened to Kemba Walker? He's not even performing like a good role player right now. If you want some other action for tonight, I've got Bengals plus 6. They're a pass interference away from beating the Chargers while the Browns got trucked by 32. I like the Tigers at plus 1.5 at plus 140. They don't even have to win the game. The Indians have lost 8 in a row, and their offense is atrocious. In a low-scoring game, I don't know what the score is right now, but in a low-scoring game, if the Tigers can stay within 1, I like that. And then certainly for this weekend, pick the Lions to cover. The line can keep going up 7.5, 8.5, 10. Pick the line. I'm sorry, not the Lions. Pick the Packers to cover against the Lions. So
yeah, I thought you'd lost it for a moment. Well, on Tuesday's show, we will be talking a lot about what transpired at Lambeau Field. How close can the Lions stay with Green Bay? Everybody have a great weekend. We will talk with you on Tuesday here on the Fifth Chapter.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Huh. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast.